God is not determined that we should live our lives consumed with fear. Every time we wake up, we are not to be consumed with the worry of what that day is going to what's going to happen on that day, or anxiety over what happened yesterday, or what could possibly happen. We walk by trusting in him. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths. Understanding God starts with, as I mentioned last time, Proverbs chapter 1, which says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. We're not to live in fear. So we start by trusting him and acknowledging him and fearing him as a corrective to our cavalier attitudes and rebellion before him. And then as we go forward in that relationship with him, we trust him and the salvation that he purchased through Jesus on the cross. And we confess our sin, which means to agree that our sin is sin, and then repent of it, which means turn away from it. And that's a daily experience. It's not just something that happens only at one time when we're born again, but also throughout our lives, trusting him, confessing sin, repenting of sin. And the core of the Christian life then is not characterized by fear, neither of things in this world or even of God. We fear God, but ultimately from him there's not a spirit of fear. There's a spirit of love and of power and of a sound mind. We see in 2 Timothy, if you would turn there, 2 Timothy chapter 1. He is writing to Timothy, and he says, for this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God which is in you through the laying of my hands. And then he says, for God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and of love and self-control. What he's saying here is that the fear of the Lord starts a long life of trust and dependence and love and experiencing and living confidently in that life and that love of God. The spirit that he gave to Timothy was not a spirit of fear. Oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? How am I going to handle this situation? Yet each thing is carefully cast and placed in the hands of the Lord, and each thing is trusted, entrusted to the Lord. And the net result of that then is that we begin to live in and experience the power of the Spirit of God in our life and the love of God totally filling us, saying, wow, I don't have to wake up shaking what's going to happen. I'm waking up embraced by the love of God. And then it's characterized and how it works out in terms of self-control or a sound mind, another translation says. We then, after we understand the fear of God and after we are filled with his spirit, not of fear, but of power and love, and then we begin to live and act out in a way that is sound mind thinking and self-controlled thinking. Worldly fear, worldly anxiety that consumes us is characterized by no self-control. When a problem comes, we immediately respond to it, and the things that are welling up in our minds and our hearts. And as I mentioned times ago, was that we make a choice. We need to make a choice. Either when I am afraid, I will trust in God, or when I'm afraid, I will allow it to consume me. I don't want it to consume me. I want to fear God and fear nothing else. And I want to, then in that, I want to live in his spirit, obeying him, seeking him, and being filled with his power to do what He's asked me to do, filled with His love to experience, but also to share with others, and then filled with His self control and with His sound mind thinking. So I'm not taken away by all the different things, but there's a way to consider things going forward. I pray that for you too.